Hello everybody, I'm Harley from Garden FL, and in today's video we're going to talk about and take a closer look at the beautiful Rollinia deliciosa, also known as Biriba. So believe it or not, the Rollinia is actually part of the Annonaceae family, which as you know is my favorite fruit family. Now there's not many times of the year here in Florida where I get Rollinia. As you know, Rollinia is in season right now. So here in Florida we're in the month of September, so that means it is Rollinia season, it is Atemoya season, it is sugar apple season. So currently there's Annonaceae everywhere. I actually got these Rollinias from Fruitscapes, as well as a new farmer friend I met down the road. His name's Sok. He's from Cambodia. He actually sold me a bunch of these beautiful Rollinias off his tree. He harvested them yesterday. So nonetheless, let's take a closer look at the beautiful Rollinia fruit. So right here we have the Rollinia deliciosa fruit. As you see, the size of the Rollinia actually can vary between tree and cultivar. As you see, this Rollinia I actually got from Fruitscapes. So as you see, it's a little different than the other Rollinias I have. This Rollinia is more rounder compared to some other Rollinias right here. As you see, they can even get much smaller in size, and as you see, they come in all different sizes and shapes. And what classifies or what makes a Rollinia really is the amount of scales it has. Now as you could tell, the Rollinia is a really scaly fruit. Now these scales actually do not poke, or they're not able to puncture you. So you know, if you get poked by one, they're actually not even hard. Now while the fruit is actually still green and hard, they might puncture you a little harder than they would in this state. But nonetheless, this is really how you classify a Rollinia, is if you see a Rollinia with the spikes just like this. And as you see, you can tell this is a different variety of Rollinia than the other variety of Rollinia I have right here that I got from my friend in Bradenton, Florida. As you see, although they're both Rollinias, they both vary very different in shape and size. Now here's another interesting way that you could tell it's Rollinia compared to other Annonaceae is actually the outer ring it has where the stem is. So typically on the Rollinia it has this one fat circle that's on the Rollinia that all Rollinias have. So that's another way how I easily can distinguish, you know, that it's a Rollinia because of that one kind of ring that it has around the stem. And as you see, this is pretty common in almost all the Rollinias that you're going to get. So you see that beautiful stem. Now before we actually go into these Rollinias, I want to talk about the best way to know when they're ready to eat and the best time to eat a Rollinia. Now believe it or not, Rollinia is also called Rollinia mucosa, and the reason why it's called mucosa is because the Rollinia fruit actually goes very mucousy in a way. So the fiber actually inside the fruit actually is kind of slimy, and the more the fruit ripens up and gets kind of yellow like that Rollinia there, the more slimier the texture actually gets. So the ideal time to eat them, the Rollinia, the best ideal time to eat the Rollinia in my opinion, to get less of that slimy and mucousy texture, is to pick them and eat them while they still have a little bit of green and some yellow kind of ripening up. As you see here, my friend Sok, he actually picked them at a really good time yesterday, and as you see, these were ready to eat yesterday and they're ready to eat today. And like I said, I want to eat them before they get to a really mucousy state, which I'm going to demonstrate in this video. Now believe it or not, this is actually just my personal preference to eat Rollinia. Some people like eating them when they're really mucousy and snotty, and that's just not my thing, but some people actually love it. So let's get into the Rollinia fruit. So here we are going to cut this Rollinia deliciosa, and I'm just going to cut it right down the middle, see if we can get a nice clean cut. And something, when you're actually cutting this, it's almost like cutting into cake. It's a very smooth cut, typically. Unlike other Annonaceae, they don't really cut as smooth as a Rollinia would. And that's just due to the Rollinia's kind of mucousy, snotty texture. So as you see here, we have the insides of the Rollinia. And as you could tell, it's very appearing like any other Annonaceae. As you see on the insides, we have the seeds aligning the center of the Rollinia fruit. And on the center, we have the stem, which is just like all other Annonaceae fruits. And you can even see the seeds on the insides have their own individual pocket. And believe it or not, this is a great example to demonstrate the mucousy of a Rollinia. So as you see on the left hand side of this Rollinia, so right here, we can see that this fiber is more dense on the Rollinia. So this is kind of like the same as like the Atemoya fiber. It's more dense, but the Rollinia, if you let it ripen, this is starting to get overripen. We really start to see the texture or the fiber get very mucousy like. It's almost like it's like a pudding. But as you see, for some people, it's very hard to actually eat this, just because, you know, some people are very texture-like eaters, and they just kind of can't get past, you know, the mucus. You see how it kind of drips just like mucus? But wow, the Rollinia does smell very sweet and delicious right now. So let's cut it more and actually get to trying this beautiful fruit. So right here I have a slither of the Rollinia Deliciosa fruit, and as you see, the skin is just really cool, unique looking. So as you see on the inside of the Rollinia, it is all white. Now this is a really good piece of Rollinia. Ideally, this is how you want to eat a Rollinia, or when you want to eat a Rollinia, just because it's much easier to eat. As you see, this is still dense and staying together, unlike the mucousy area that I just showed you. Part of the fruit is actually going overripe, but I just cut it at that time so we can still enjoy the better parts of the fruits. So let's get a taste test. Wow. So as you see, as I bit in, it all stays together, but it's very kind of like a jelly texture. The texture is unlike any other Annona that I've tasted, compared to atemoya, chirimoya, guanabana. It's a very different texture. As you see, all the seeds are kind of staying in place. And let's take another bite. Wow, this is actually a really good tasting Rollinia. But something I want to point out too is, as you eat the Rollinia, the closer you get to this skin, is the more it tastes like lemon meringue pie. There's a kind of a sweet and sour taste to the Rollinia, but the sweet and sour combination is very reminiscent of lemon meringue pie. And the more closer you get to the skin of the Rollinia fruit, it tastes almost like pie crust. So it's literally almost like eating like the lemon meringue pie. It's very good. As you see, we still have a little bit left. So ideally, like I said, that is the best time when to get a Rollinia Deliciosa, is when you can get them in that state, when they're still kind of, dense and held together. Now let's see if we can get some of them more mucousy area so we can compare the differences. So here's an example of a Rollinia mucosa, as I would say, because at this stage, as you see, the Rollinia is kind of falling apart on its own. And this is when it gets very mucousy, as you could tell. As you see, the actual insides of the fruit actually get kind of like a slimy way. We cannot eat this the same way as we ate the other one. As you see, if I would have hold it like that, it would just all fall. So this is kind of undesirable to some people, because when you eat it like this, it's kind of very slimy and mucousy. And we're gonna eat some just so we see how it's eaten at this stage. Nonetheless, at this stage, it is still very palatable. So this does not make it ruin, it just makes it undesirable for some people. So when I say Rollinia can be mucousy, this is what I mean. If you let it get too overripe, it can get a little mucousy. And as you see, it looks like snot. So it's still sweet snot and good snot, but sometimes yeah, I can't do that. It's a weird texture. It's like eating, it's like slime going down my throat. But as you see, I'd much rather prefer, and this is a kind of good example too. You see, this half of the fruit is how I like it. It's much more dense, and on this side is much more mucousy. You can see, like, you can just go through with your finger. On this side, you couldn't do that. On this side, it's still smooth, like a atemoya. It's so smooth. But on this side is all mucousy. You see, that's what I mean by when I say Rollinia Deliciosa is mucousy, because part of the fruit is starting to ripen too far into that mucousy stage, while this part of the fruit is still very dense and edible. Look at that. These are the seeds of the Rollinia Deliciosa. As you see, they appear to be like a chirimoya seed or any other Annonaceae seed, very similar. Here's a better look at the Rollinia up close. As you can see, you can easily distinguish the mucousy side compared to the still dense side, the side I like to eat. But nonetheless, it's still a very beautiful fruit. Its taste is unlike any other Annona as well. As you're eating it, you do have that lemony taste throughout it, paired with a nice sweet and sourness from the fruit. And the fruit itself comes with a skin that's really cakey and almost looks like cake batter as you eat closer to the skin. So it's almost like, I don't know, it feels like cake batter. It's like very dense, very cakey feel to me. And you know, as you get closer, it's just more dense. So it's like just like cake batter in a way. Like the fruit even looks like kind of a cake batter. It's very delicious. All this part right here is delicious. To me, this part of the fruit is what tastes like lemon meringue pie the most, is closer to the skin. So this part right here is delicioso. So I wanted to show you how the fruits in the Annonaceae family can vary, but they do have their similarities. So on the left I have Lisa Atemoya, in the middle I have sugar apple, and on the right I have the Rollinia. So as you see, they all have their similarities, but they do also all have their differences that, you know, make them their unique fruits, and you know, they all have those traits that you just want to grow in your garden. So thank you guys so much for watching this video on the Rollinia Deliciosa today. I hope you learned something new about the Rollinia, maybe something that you didn't know about it. If you haven't tried Rollinia, I definitely recommend you trying it. As unique as it is, you know, some people wait a long time to try this fruit, and you know, it's just a letdown for them. So it's for some people and it's not for some people, depending on the texture and whatnot. But to me, I really like Rollinia. It's a really healthy fruit, really good for your body, and it's just a beautiful fruit to also grow and look at in your garden. So thank you guys so much. I'm Holly from Garden FL, and I hope you enjoyed this Rollinia video. Bye bye now.